In my previous life, my legitimate sister forced me to marry the lowest servant in the manor, a stable hand. However, that stable hand later rose to prominence for his meritorious service in saving the emperor, and I became the most envied noble lady in the capital. My legitimate sister was consumed with jealousy. In this new life, she ignored everyone's objections and stubbornly pursued an affair with the stable hand. But then she discovered that the person who had risen to prominence due to their meritorious service in saving the emperor had become me. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was simultaneously faced with both good news and bad news. The good news was that I had been reborn. The bad news is, it seems I'm about to die again. A gleaming steel blade pressed against my throat as a tall man sneered coldly. Sorry, although we have no grudges between us. The young lady wants you dead by midnight. I can't let you live till dawn. Memories from my past life flooded in, and I finally saw the face of the man before me clearly. He is the stable hand of my family, Wei Lu. He was also my husband in my previous life. I have returned to the night when, following my elder sister's orders, he intended to kill me. The tip of the blade had already pierced my skin, and blood was gushing out, just as I was about to speak. The door was suddenly forced open from the outside. My legitimate elder sister stumbled in. Seeing that I was still alive, she let out a long sigh of relief, stepped forward, and tightly wrapped her arms around Wei Lu's waist. Thank heavens, Lu, we're still in time. Wei Lu was startled, and my legitimate elder sister passionately kissed his lips. Lu, don't marry her. I'm willing to be with you. I immediately realized that my legitimate sister, Du Pingting, had been reborn. My family has been a royal merchant for generations. Du Pingting is the only daughter of my father and his principal wife, naturally beautiful and cherished like a pearl in the palm since childhood. In contrast, I am a daughter of a concubine whose mother passed away early. Not only am I not beautiful, but I have also loved practicing martial arts since I was young, fighting with street boys one day and learning swordsmanship from wandering martial artists the next. My father despises me for lacking the grace of a proper young lady and has always held me in extreme contempt. Du Pingting had never taken me, an unfavored daughter of a concubine, seriously. However, by a twist of fate, I ended up saving the young master of the Liu family on the street. That young master Liu was dashingly handsome and happened to be the very person Du Pingting had long admired. Seeing that young Master Liu couldn't forget me because of the life-saving favor and even seemed inclined to send a matchmaker to propose marriage, Du Pingting could no longer sit still. She wanted to find someone to kill me, but she also knew that no one would be willing to do such a thing easily, so she called for Wei Lu. Wei Lu was Du Pingting's #1 admirer and had repeatedly told her, my worthless life belongs entirely to the young lady. So, Du Pingting first softened Wei Lu with her tears, putting on a pitiful act and claiming that only Wei Lu could help her now. Then, she gave Wei Lu 10 taels of silver, telling him to flee after killing me. This way, you help me, and you gain your own freedom. Du Pingting's clever plan was well thought out. But she never expected that Wei Lu, who had always been so obedient to her, would inexplicably become bewitched that night. Not only did he not kill me, but he married me. Then, using the secret that Du Pingting had once asked him to commit murder as leverage, he forced her to return the deed of sale. Originally, even though Du Pingting felt displeased, she could still accept the situation at this point. After all, she had gotten her wish and married the young Master Liu, while I could only become the wife of Wei Lu, whom she had always looked down upon. But fate is unpredictable. Du Pingting had been married into the Liu family for only 3 months when Lord Liu was investigated and punished for embezzlement. The once illustrious Liu residence was confiscated and reduced to utter ruin. Young Master Liu squandered the last of his family's money on drinking, gambling, and visiting brothels, even bringing back a disease he contracted in a hidden den. Meanwhile, Wei Lu, a scoundrel in his own right, seemed to have luck on his side. Stumbling upon one stroke of good fortune after another, after regaining his freedom, it happened that the emperor came for the autumn hunt and needed local guides in the mountains. Wei Lu was chosen as one of the guides. During that autumn hunt, assassins appeared. Just as the emperor was about to be struck by the assassin's blade, Wei Lu rushed forward without hesitation and took the blow for the emperor. Afterward, Wei Lu miraculously survived and, for his meritorious service in protecting the emperor, was selected to become a guard of the palace command. Later, Prince Ning rebelled and led troops to surround the Houching Hall. On the day of the palace coup, Wei Lu remained calm in the face of danger, using diversionary tactics and besieging the enemy to rescue the ally. With just 300 guards, he held off Prince Ning's army for an entire night until reinforcements arrived. Afterward, the emperor rewarded the meritorious deeds. And Wei Lu was exceptionally infeft as the Marquis of Zhongyi, the former horsegroom, once scorned by Du Pingting, thus rose rapidly in status, and I, in turn, benefited from his success, becoming the esteemed and noble wife of the Marquis. Wei Lu treated me very well, he took no concubines, accepted no beautiful maids, and every day we treated each other with the utmost respect and affection. All the noble women in the capital were extremely envious of me. Du Pingting was driven mad with jealousy. When I returned to the estate to pay respects to my ancestors, she cornered me in the ancestral hall. Her bloodshot eyes were filled with deep regret and resentment as she stared at me. It was clearly me whom Wei Lu loved. If I hadn't sent him to kill you that night, he would have come to marry me after he rose to prominence. Du Yunshu, you took everything that originally belonged to me. I won't let you have it easy. She laughed maniacally and set the ancestral hall on fire. And so, we both died in the fire. Now we have been reborn together. At this moment, Du Pingting passionately kissed Wei Lu's lips. While I struggled to get up, clutching my wound and trying to escape, Wei Lu noticed with alarm. He stepped on me and raised the knife in his hand, but Du Pingting grabbed him. Don't. My heart is pounding like a drum, and my whole body is trembling with nervousness, but my mind is gradually becoming clearer. Du Pingting won't kill me anymore. The body will be discovered. The government constables are not just for show. Wei Lu will eventually be found out. In her original plan, Wei Lu was just a pawn to be discarded. But now, it's clear that she wants to become Wei Lu's wife after her rebirth, so she absolutely cannot let Wei Lu shoulder such a grave matter as murder tonight. Wei Lu was unaware of all this and said urgently, Pingting, why are you stopping me? If we don't kill her, she will become a stumbling block to your marriage into the Liu family. Du Pingting's brow relaxed as she sensed Wei Lu's affection for her. She took his hand and shed tears. Liu, I've made up my mind. You're willing to do anything for me, so how could I sacrifice you for wealth and status? She said emotionally. I won't marry into the Liu family. From now on, whether in poverty or prosperity, I will only stay by your side. Wei Lu was deeply moved. But your parents won't agree. I have my own way to handle that. Du Pingting said softly. Then, she looked at me. I was pinned to the ground by Wei Lu, who was stepping on my shoulder, and I lay there in agony. In truth, I had some martial arts skills myself and shouldn't have been so defenseless, but Wei Lu had used knockout smoke beforehand, and at that moment, my limbs were weak, making it impossible for me to escape. At this moment, I am at her mercy like a fish on the chopping block. Even if Du Pingting doesn't kill me, she will never let me go. How can I make her feel at ease? A sudden idea flashed through my mind. I immediately straightened my neck and shouted loudly, Elder sister, aren't you just afraid that I'll compete with you for young Master Liu? Let me tell you, either kill me now, or I will be the one to marry him. Upon hearing this, Du Pingting almost burst out laughing. That young Master Liu is exceptionally handsome and has always been the dream lover of countless young ladies in their boudoirs. However, in her previous life, after Du Pingting actually married him, she discovered that aside from his prominent family background and handsome appearance, he was utterly worthless in every other aspect. After the Liu family fell into decline, young Master Liu even spent the last of their money on drinking and carousing in brothels, and when he got drunk, he would return home and beat Du Pingting. Now, Du Pingting doesn't know that I have been reborn. Only by wholeheartedly pretending to want to marry young Master Liu can I truly put her mind at ease. Sure enough, Du Pingting told Wei Lu to let me go. Lu, let her go back. Wei Lu was worried. What if she tells others about what happened tonight? Don't worry, she wouldn't dare. Du Pingting smiled at me. If you tell anyone that Wei Lu captured you tonight, even if you make it back alive, the Liu family will surely speculate whether you've been defiled. By then, the young Master Liu you've been longing for won't want you anymore. I bit my lip, wearing an expression of humiliation and helplessness. So, here's the deal, you don't tell anyone about Wei Lu and me. And I won't stand in the way of you marrying into the Liu family. How about that? Du Pingting asked. I remained silent for a long time, then nodded. Du Pingting laughed, then turned back and continued kissing Wei Lu passionately. I stumbled out the door. The moonlight was beautiful. We all got what we wished for. After returning home, I kept my promise to Du Pingting and remained silent, and Du Pingting began her plan. She first had her father purchase large quantities of coal and stockpile it in the shop. Her father was puzzled, as we are in the south where the weather is warm all year round, and there is no need for so much charcoal in the winter. But Du Pingting insisted, and since her father had always doted on her, he went ahead with it. Just a few days later, the weather suddenly changed, bringing a heavy snowfall rarely seen in decades. The city turned bitterly cold, and with charcoal in short supply, prices soared. My father made a fortune thanks to the coal he had stockpiled early on. Later, when the first wife wanted to repair several rooms in the West Wing, Du Pingting immediately spoke up to stop her. Mother, it's useless to repair them, you'll just be wasting money. Sure enough, the willow tree in the western courtyard had fallen, crushing several houses. Father and the main wife were astonished and began to realize that Du Pingting had an uncanny ability to predict events. Having laid the groundwork to this point, Du Pingting finally revealed her trump card. Father, Mother, to be honest, I often dream of an immortal at midnight, and the immortal tells me about future events. My father was overjoyed. What did the immortal tell you? Du Pingting whispered softly. For example, Lord Liu will be investigated and exiled for embezzlement. His entire estate will be confiscated. And young Master Liu will contract an illness from a secret prostitute while indulging in pleasure. Upon hearing this, the first wife's face turned pale. Will the Liu family truly meet such a fate? No, we absolutely cannot let Pingting marry into that family. My father thought more than the first wife did, and for a moment, he was caught in a dilemma. But Lord Liu has already requested a daughter from our Du family to be his daughter-in-law, and I have already agreed. If we go back on our word now, wouldn't that offend him? Regardless of whether the Liu residence will decline afterward, for now, he still holds the lifeline of our Du family. If we anger Lord Liu and he removes me from the list of imperial merchants, our Du family will suffer this year. Du Pingting smiled and said, Father, there's no need to worry. The Du family has more than one daughter. Not long ago, wasn't it Yunshu who saved young Master Liu from the hands of those hooligans? Upon hearing this, the first wife immediately felt relieved. Master, it seems that having Yunshu marry over is the best solution. Father never liked me to begin with. After pondering for a moment, he said, Indeed, but Yunshu is the younger sister. In prominent families, the eldest daughter always marries first. We need to arrange another marriage for Pingting. Du Pingting quickly said, Father, the immortal has already pointed out my noble husband for me. Du Pingting clapped her hands 3 times, and Wei Lu walked in. Father's face instantly turned ashen. The first wife nearly fainted. Wei Lu, a horse slave. Du Pingting resolutely took Wei Lu's hand. Your daughter and Wei Lu are deeply in love, and Wei Lu bears extraordinary signs. He is destined for great success in the future. Who is it? Father, Mother, your daughter has already shared intimate relations with Wei Lu. In this lifetime, I will marry no one but him, if you do not consent. I will take my own life to prove my resolve. It must be said, Du Pingting is playing a high-stakes game. With this series of actions, she not only forces her father and the first wife to agree to this absurd marriage but also moves Wei Lu to the depths of his heart. And so, in the Du residence, Du Pingting and Wei Lu were deeply affectionate with each other. She also came to see me several times, urging me, Sister, you should also work hard to prepare for marrying into the Liu family. Every time she said this, a malicious smile would appear at the corner of her lips. On the surface, I pretended to be eager and willing, but in secret, I was quietly carrying out my own plans. First, I am practicing martial arts. My mother was actually the daughter of a military general in her early years. Later, her family was convicted, her father and brothers were executed, and she was registered as a slave and sold into my family. During her lifetime, in this small courtyard, I was taught martial arts and military strategy. Mother would pat my head and say, Yunshu learns so quickly. After saying that, she would secretly shed tears. After all, even she herself knew that for women like us, trapped in the inner chambers, These were nothing but impractical skills. Mother would never know how much these things would later help me, in my past life. The one who deployed troops to achieve victory against overwhelming odds during the palace coup was not Wei Lu, but me. On the night when Wei Lu's steel blade was about to pierce my throat, I begged him to spare my life. I told him I could marry him. After all, my legitimate sister wanted me dead only to prevent me from hindering her marriage into the Liu family. If I became Wei Lu's woman, it would achieve the same purpose. My legitimate sister and I look somewhat alike. You can think of me as her. Wei Lu was finally moved. He gave up on killing me. I exchanged humiliation for my life. This is what my mother taught me. Endure hardships to accomplish a great mission, for revenge can wait 10 years. Afterward, I gradually made use of Wei Lu. During the autumn hunt, Wei Lu was responsible for guiding the way, and I was in charge of serving. We were both present at the scene, when the assassin's blade was about to strike the emperor's chest. It was I who pushed Wei Lu forward from the shadows. My thoughts at the time were simple: if he survived, he would surely be rewarded, and I could benefit from it as well. If he dies, I'll get promoted, make a fortune, and lose a husband. No loss at all. Fortunately, Wei Lu was severely injured but survived. Not only did he survive, but thanks to his muscular build, he was selected to join the Imperial Guard, becoming a favorite of the emperor. But he has no brains. So he has no choice but to rely on me for everything. And so, everything my mother taught me became useful, and I obtained the finest puppet. Later on, I even poisoned Wei Lu, forcing him to obey my commands. But now that I have been reborn, there is a better solution for everything. In my previous life, Wei Lu gained everything because he had rendered great service by saving the emperor. Now, I know when the emperor will be assassinated, where the assassin will emerge from, and from which angle the blade will strike. So why can't I be the one who earns merit by saving the emperor? Besides secretly practicing martial arts, I have actually done a few other things. Rebirth is a tremendous advantage. Besides making this life better for myself, I also hope to help others within my means. For example, before the sudden cold and snowfall in the city, I also bought some coal at a low price. After the snowfall, I quietly gave it to those poor families who couldn't afford expensive coal. In those households, some had newborn babies, while others had elderly people with mobility issues. Because of my rebirth, they were able to survive a warm winter. For example, before the big willow tree fell and crushed the western wing of the house, I had already called the young girls living there into my room. They were all children of servants, their parents had passed away, and no one was looking after them. So they lived in that dilapidated, drafty house. In my previous life, on the night the willow tree fell, the old house collapsed, and their short, difficult lives came to an end. The next day, when the girls saw their house had been crushed, they were all filled with lingering fear. If it weren't for Sister Yunshu inviting us to her room for candy, we would surely have died. However, this inevitably left hidden dangers for me. That day, after being intimate with Wei Lu, Du Pingting happily walked out of the courtyard and suddenly discovered that these little girls, who should have died in her previous life, were all still alive. She belatedly realized that something was amiss, so she called them over and asked where they had gone on the night the willow tree fell. Upon learning that I had called them away, Du Pingting's expression changed. That night, when I returned to my room, I found it had been turned upside down. And Du Pingting was standing there with the servants, seemingly waiting just for me to return. When she saw me, she walked over and pinched my chin. "My dear Yunshu, how long did you plan to keep such a good thing as rebirth from me?" I looked at her. "Rebirth? What rebirth?" Du Pingting said fiercely. "Stop pretending." She raised the protective gear in her hand, which she had just found in my room after leading a search. "This is the leather protective gear you meticulously sewed. Isn't it for Wei Lu?" As expected, you only pretended to want to marry into the Liu family as a smokescreen, but in reality, you're still trying to steal Wei Lu from me, aren't you? She took a pair of scissors and viciously cut the protective gear I had sewn to pieces. "Let me tell you, trying to curry favor with Wei Lu is useless. In our previous life, you took everything from me. In this life, I will never let you have it easy. Just wait, I'm going to report this to father and mother right now and have you married into the Liu family immediately." She leaned close to me and chuckled softly. Of course, as a daughter of a concubine, It would be too high of a reach for you to become young Master Liu's principal wife. Being a concubine suits your status better. When the Liu family falls into decline, you'll only be sold off. On the surface, I looked at Du Pingting with shock and resentment, but inside, I nearly burst out laughing. I thought she would come up with some way to deal with me. It turns out that all she ever thinks about is competing for men. That leather gear wasn't made for Wei Lu at all, it was meant to be sold for money. After all, if I want to save the emperor later, I'll need a lot of silver to prepare in advance. Du Pingting was about to say something more when a servant hurried in to report. Miss, young Master Wei says he'd like to have some chicken soup made by your own hands. Du Pingting quickly responded, I'm coming. She turned to me with a smile and said, see, Lord Wei only drinks the chicken soup I make. How could you possibly compete with me? After saying that, she left in high spirits with the servants to prepare a meal for her dear husband. A bad brain is truly an incurable disease. Even rebirth can't fix it. After tidying up the house, I stepped out of the courtyard gate and was grabbed by someone as soon as I reached a secluded spot. I was startled and turned around abruptly, only to find it was Wei Lu. Wei Lu had been eating and drinking well lately, gaining a noticeable amount of weight, with bulging flesh on his face when he smiled. I was annoyed at the sight of him and said coldly, what brings you here, brother-in-law? Wei Lu smiled and said, I deliberately lured your sister away. Aren't you going to thank me? To be honest, I feel more at ease when Wei Lu treats me poorly. Now that he's being unusually attentive for no reason, I immediately became alert. What do you mean? Wei Lu walked over and reached out to touch my shoulder. Yunshu, do you know, I had a dream. In my dream, you begged me desperately, saying you liked me, and you didn't even mind being Du Pingting's substitute. My mind went blank with a sudden shock. That was the excuse I used to save my life in my past life. I shrugged. It was also my greatest shame, but that's not the point. The real issue is that Wei Lu actually dreamed about events from his past life. You see, while Du Pingting didn't know the details of saving the emperor, Wei Lu was fully aware of them. If he remembers everything and decides to compete with me, my situation will become very complicated. So, suppressing the disgust in my heart, I pretended to be sorrowful and said, is that all you dreamed about? Wei Lu asked. What? Do you know more? I hesitated and said, I also have the same dream. In the dream, I later became your wife, and we moved together to Shizipu in the southern part of the city. Wei Lu frowned, looking somewhat bewildered. He murmured, Shizipu, that dilapidated alley full of street vendors and laborious. Immediately, Wei Lu's expression turned to one of relief. I knew what he was relieved about. He was relieved that in this life, he had won the love of Miss Du and didn't have to suffer in a place like Crossin. But what Wei Lu didn't know was that I was also relieved. It seemed Wei Lu's dream was progressing bit by bit. For now, he had only dreamed of the night he intended to kill me. As long as he remembers late enough, the advantage is still on my side. I can even make use of Wei Lu first. After 2 lifetimes, I've come to realize that Wei Lu is a complete scoundrel. The characteristic of a scoundrel is that what they haven't obtained is always the best. In his previous life, he was a lowly stable boy, while Du Pingting was the moon in the sky, the cinnabar mole in his heart. But in this life, Du Pingting suddenly became a desperate, clingy follower who obeyed his every command. At first, he felt flattered, but soon, he no longer took her seriously. On the contrary, my indifference began to pique his interest. After realizing this, I deliberately said to Wei Lu with a calm tone, the matters of the previous life are in the past. In this life, I am going to marry young Master Liu. You and I are simply not meant to be. After saying that, a trace of sorrow flashed in my eyes, and I immediately turned and walked away. Wei Lu grabbed me. Yunshu, I now hold an official position. For an official, having 3 wives and 4 concubines is quite normal. Although I already knew Wei Lu was a scoundrel, I was still shocked by just how despicable he could be. Wei Lu had indeed secured an official position now. This was because the idea of Du Pingting marrying a stable hand was simply too absurd. So, after spending a fortune and asking her father to pull strings everywhere, she finally managed to buy Wei Lu an official post. Du Pingting's reasoning was that, on one hand, this would allow them to maintain a semblance of respectability in their current life, and on the other hand, it would make it easier for Wei Lu to later achieve the great merit of saving the emperor. The truth is, If someone receives too many favors from you, they may feel grateful at first, but eventually, they will only see it as their own extraordinary merit. Just like Wei Lu at this moment, he's gotten carried away. As soon as he secured an official position through Du Pingting, he began to covet the lifestyle of his colleagues who had multiple wives and concubines. And here I thought he had genuine feelings for Du Pingting. My thoughts raced, and I gave a sorrowful smile, lowering my gaze as I said, "Even if I were willing, how could my sister ever accept me?" After saying this, I wiped away non-existent tears and, ignoring Wei Lu's calls from behind, turned and hurried away. Soon, the day my parents had arranged for my betrothal arrived. In the main hall, my father and the principal wife sat on either side of the table, with Du Pingting accompanying them. The scene resembled two judges and a cunning advisor. While I was the prisoner about to be exiled, father was the first to speak. "Yunshu, you are no longer young. It so happens that young Master Liu, due to your previous act of saving his life, has taken a liking to you. The Liu family is a prominent and powerful clan, and marrying into it would be an honor for you." The first lady, who had never liked me, immediately followed up. "But your mother was, after all, a disgraced official. With your lowly status, it is entirely unsuitable for you to be the legitimate wife of the Liu family. You should be grateful just to be a concubine," I replied calmly. "Wouldn't it be a disgrace to the Du family to have their daughter serve as a concubine?" Seeing my resistance, the first lady's expression turned cold. Abandoning all pretense of propriety, she retorted bluntly, "You are not my own child, and our Du family has never publicly acknowledged you as a daughter. Even if we were to claim you were a maid from our household and casually gift you to young Master Liu, what could you possibly do about it? So, the first lady is determined to make me a concubine, and why not?" At that moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. Wei Lu, dressed in official attire, strode in with large steps. "If that's the case, why not let Miss Yunshu become my concubine?" The head wife was stunned. My father was also stunned. Du Pingting's body swayed violently, almost fainting. She pointed at Wei Lu, unable to speak for a long time. "You," Wei Lu said loudly, "my dear, look. As a 7th-rank imperial guard with a sword, most of my colleagues have 3 wives and 4 concubines, with many children, and yet in my house, I don't even have a maid to warm the bed. It's truly shabby. When colleagues ask about it, most of them mock me and speculate that you are jealous and domineering. Doesn't this not only make me lose face but also damage your reputation? Since taking a concubine is inevitable, wouldn't it be better for the 2 sisters to work together, rather than bringing in a stranger from outside?" Du Pingting's face turned pale, and she could barely catch her breath. I watched from the side, feeling nothing but cold laughter inside. Who can she blame? She can only blame herself for being too foolish. In my previous life, although I helped Wei Lu ascend to the throne, I had already fed him a slow-acting poison. The antidote for that slow-acting poison was only in my hands, so Wei Lu feared me and had no choice but to act as my puppet. When collaborating with others, the key is to balance kindness and authority, always keeping something in hand to maintain control over the other party. However, Du Pingting was too naive. She kept nothing for herself, only devoted herself wholeheartedly to Wei Lu, believing that he would cherish this love even after he rose to power. She was wrong. Not all acts of kindness in times of need are rewarded. Under the vast sky, there is no shortage of stories like that of the foolish scholar and the wolf. The news that Wei Lu publicly requested to take me as his concubine quickly spread. Upon hearing this, the Liu family, unwilling to get involved in such trouble and suspecting that I had already been intimate with Wei Lu, naturally no longer sought to marry me. Du Pingting was furious. She had a big argument with Wei Lu and then angrily ordered her maid, "Go and scar Du Yunshu's face, then throw her out of the mansion." Du Pingting's reasoning wasn't wrong, but she was a step too late. I've already packed a small bundle myself. I took advantage of the chaos to run away. After such a big incident, I definitely won't stay at the Du residence any longer. In my previous life, I lived with Wei Lu at Shilapu for a while and knew that Granny Wang, who sells soup cakes, is a good person. She has a few old houses, and I can rent one to live in. At night, I spread out the quilt and began to think about what to do next. At the beginning of next month, the emperor will go hunting. He will seek local guides and attendants in the mountains, and the task of selecting these locals is assigned to Eunuch Li from the imperial court. This kind of assignment is open to anyone, so Eunuch Li simply chooses whoever offers the most silver. In my previous life, Wei Lu and I spent a total of 50 taels of silver and successfully secured the opportunity. If it were me, I would need at least 30 taels. I had saved up quite a bit of money, but that time when Du Pingting brought people to search my room, they took all the silver as well. I left in such a hurry this time that I truly don't know where to get the money right now. If I go out and find work, I could earn some money, but the progress is too slow. With only about 10 days left until the Emperor's hunt, it's very difficult to gather that much silver. Just as I was extremely anxious and already considering whether to risk returning to the Du residence to sneak out some gold and jewelry, someone knocked on the window. I looked up and saw a delicate, pretty little face. The visitor was Xiaotsue. Back then, I saved the little girls who had been crushed to death by the big willow tree in their previous lives, and Xiaotsue was the oldest among them. Sister Yunshu, Xiaotsue called out softly. I came alone. Please open the door. I opened the door for her and asked, how did you know I was here? Xiaotsue seemed to understand my concerns and reassured me. Don't worry, no one else knows you're here except for me. Uncle Liu Erlang, who sells goods at Cross Shop, is my uncle. I came here because he saw you here. Sister Yunshu, I'm sorry. Did we say something wrong that made the young lady bully you? Actually, yes. But the oldest of these girls is only 7 or 8 years old, and the youngest is just 3 or 4. How could I possibly blame them for anything? So I patted Xiaotsue's head and said, no, it has nothing to do with you. Xiaotsue took out a pouch of silver. Sister Yunshu, after you were driven out of the mansion, you must have no money to spend. This is from us. I was taken aback. Where did this money come from? Xiaotsue said. Zhaodi earned some money from washing clothes before. And Yulian took out the reward money she had saved. I stared at Xiaotsue. I know, with just these, there's absolutely no way it could be this much money. Xiao Kui, seeing that she couldn't hide it from me, bit her lip and said, I pawned the jade pendant my mother left me. That jade pendant was a keepsake from Xiao Kui's mother. I immediately tried to give the silver back to Xiao Kui, but she quickly stepped back. Sister Yunshu, you know, we all believe that you are destined to achieve great things. Don't let us down. With that, Xiaotsue hopped out of the room and dashed away in a flash. I stood there in a daze, clutching the money these young girls had pooled together for me, my heart filled with mixed emotions. They are honest, intelligent, and grateful. They are far more deserving of my support and assistance than men like Wei Lu. I clenched the silver in my hand. I knew that instead of refusing again, I should take it and use it for greater things. Before I knew it, the day of the Emperor's autumn hunt had arrived. The Western Hills area had already been cordoned off by the Imperial Guards. Local guides responsible for leading the way were only allowed entry after their credentials were inspected by the guards. Dressed in men's clothing, I presented the credentials I had obtained from Eunuch Li. After inspection by the guards, I was permitted to enter. Our tasks as guides were quite simple. Aside from leading the way for the Emperor and the other officials he brought along for the autumn hunt, we were to drive deer, rabbits, and other game toward the main paths, making it easier for the important figures to hunt. With the memories from my previous life, I immediately headed southeast toward the mountain, near the coordinates of a 1,000-year-old tree. In his previous life, Wei Lu had intended to go to the western side of the mountain. But I judged that the southeast direction had more game and was more likely to earn rewards, so I brought him here. As it turned out, by a stroke of luck, the assassins appeared about 2 miles away. The Emperor's horse was startled, galloping all the way here, crashed into a tree, and threw the Emperor off. The assassins then arrived shortly after, drawing their swords to strike at the Emperor. At the critical moment, I pushed Wei Lu forward, making him block the assassin's sword. The Emperor himself was skilled in martial arts. Seizing the time Wei Lu had bought, he immediately drew his sword and killed the assassin in return. This time, I won't give Wei Lu another chance to earn merit. However, just as I was scheming, a familiar and irritating voice sounded from behind me. Yun Shu. I turned around, and it was Wei Lu. How could this be? Wei Lu clearly shouldn't be here. Wei Lu didn't notice my panic. He happily stepped forward and said with emotion, Yun Shu, I never expected you to go to such great lengths just to see me. Don't worry, when I return this time, I will definitely take you as my concubine. I understood. Wei Lu did not dream of his past life in advance. He merely recognized me from afar, thinking I had gone to great lengths to come to the Western Hills just to meet him. At this moment, the sun was about to sink behind the mountains, and time was of the essence. I had to send Wei Lu away immediately, so I lowered my head and said shyly, Wei Lang, I am truly touched that you would treat me this way. Since no one will come here anyway, why don't we just, today? Wei Lu was overjoyed. You're willing to give yourself to me today? I suppressed my disgust and forced a smile. Yes, how about this? Wei Lang, why don't you go wait for me behind that big rock over there first? Wei Lu reached out to take my hand. Let's go together. At that moment, the faint sound of hoofbeats could be heard in the distance, accompanied by indistinct voices. There's an assassin. Only Wei Lu was so lustful that he completely failed to hear it. It was too late. I pushed him hard. You go first. I'll put on the peach red bellaband and come right away. Wei Lu was overjoyed once again. He hurried excitedly toward the large rock not far away. As soon as he left, the sound of galloping hooves approached rapidly nearby. Stop, stop. In his previous life, the same situation had occurred. The emperor wanted the horse to stop, but the horse had been slashed by an assassin. In its pain, it lost all reason and galloped wildly. I rushed forward and pulled up the trip rope between two large trees. The rope suddenly tightened, causing the horse to stumble and throw the emperor off its back. I was prepared and leaped forward, catching the emperor, Your Majesty, and at this critical moment, the assassin had also leaped forward, his sword aimed directly at the emperor. Do you think I'm going to block the sword? I won't. In the previous life, after Wei Lu blocked the sword, his internal organs were damaged. Although he survived, his lifespan was definitely greatly reduced. I have a smarter way. Sure enough, the assassin charged towards the emperor, who hastily drew his sword to face the enemy. Meanwhile, I pulled out a round object and threw it right in front of the assassin's feet. The next second, the assassin let out a howl and collapsed. The emperor looked down. Animal trap. The massive steel trap clamped directly onto the assassin's leg, causing him to curl up in pain. The emperor would never let such an opportunity slip. In the next moment, his sword had pierced through the assassin's shoulder, pinning him firmly to the ground. He turned to look at me. What is your name? I lowered my head and replied respectfully, Du Yunshu. The emperor narrowed his eyes slightly and said, Clouds gather and disperse, a fine name. Thank you, Your Majesty. It was my mother who gave me this name. This should have been a perfect and deeply moving scene. However, the next moment, a naked person jumped out from behind a large rock in the distance. Yunshu, I've been waiting for so long. Are you done yet? Wei Lu shouted loudly. The emperor's pupils trembled with shock. Fortunately, the awkward situation did not last long. Soon after, the imperial guards arrived and escorted the emperor back. They had many important matters to attend to, such as tending to the emperor's injuries and interrogating the assassin. Eunuch Li was responsible for escorting me back to the residence first. He told me to rest assured, as His Majesty would grant me a reward in a couple of days after handling the remaining matters. I wasn't worried, because in my previous life, Wei Lu also waited at home for a few days before receiving the imperial edict of reward from His Majesty. Eunuch Li escorted me back to the Du residence, and Wei Lu also had to return to the Du residence. He is very embarrassed now. Fortunately, His Majesty was probably in a good mood after surviving the ordeal, so he didn't say much more. Wei Lu awkwardly returned with me to the entrance of the residence. Eunuch Li said, The imperial decree has not yet been issued, so it's best not to involve too many people. I won't escort you inside. With that, he bowed and left. Only Wei Lu and I were left at the entrance of the mansion. Wei Lu already knew I was the hero who had saved the emperor, and he spoke to me awkwardly and ingratiatingly. Before he could finish his words, a person rushed out from the mansion. Du Pingting excitedly threw her arms around Wei Lu. Husband, you're finally back. The one who just escorted you back was Eunuch Li, wasn't it? You finally made it big. Du Pingting hugged Wei Lu, laughing and shouting with joy. Wei Lu looked extremely embarrassed. He wanted to deny it, but in this situation, he couldn't bring himself to say anything. Du Pingting turned her head and saw me. You lowly wretch, what are you doing here? Don't tell me you're thinking of becoming a concubine again now that Wei Lu has a chance for promotion. Wei Lu, looking very embarrassed, tugged at Du Pingting. Don't be so harsh on Yunshu. After all, Wei Lu knew that I had recently achieved a great feat, so he didn't dare to provoke me, but Du Pingting misunderstood. You're still defending her. With that shout, Wei Lu didn't dare to say another word. After all, the matter of the assassin couldn't be revealed at this time, and he couldn't explain it to Du Pingting, leaving him flushed with anxiety. Du Pingting began to cry. Wei Lang, you know very well how I've treated you. If you abandon me, your humble wife. As soon as you get promoted, what will others say about you? As she cried, passers-by turned to look, their eyes filled with curiosity and amusement, seeing the growing crowd of onlookers. Du Pingting no longer cared about maintaining her dignity as a young lady. Her only thought was to firmly bind herself to Wei Lu, who was on the verge of rising to prominence, so she nestled against Wei Lu's shoulder and said loudly, Wei Lang, I want you to say that I am the only one in your heart. Wei Lu swallowed his saliva. In my heart, there is only you. You will never betray me after your promotion. All right, I will never betray you. Wei Lu was only focused on getting Du Pingting to calm down quickly, so he readily agreed. Anyway, he wasn't going to get promoted either. Did you hear that? Du Pingting turned to look at me, smugly saying, Wei Lang and I share a deep bond. Don't even think about coming between us in this lifetime. Wei Lu felt goosebumps all over and wanted to persuade Du Pingting, but he was afraid of being misunderstood by her again. Truly caught in a dilemma, I watched the play with a smile on my face, almost tempted to take out some sunflower seeds to snack on. How about this, sister? I said. Since you despise me so much, could you write a formal document to sever ties with me? From now on, whether I live or die, it will have nothing to do with the Du family. This was exactly what Du Pingting wanted. Ignoring Wei Lu's desperate attempts to stop her, she wrote the document in front of everyone. From that day on, I was only Yunshu, no longer Du Yunshu. I am very satisfied, because Yun is my mother's maiden name. A few days later, Eunuch Li finally arrived at the Du residence again. Du Pingting was extremely excited, pulling her parents and Wei Lu out to greet him. Eunuch Li, has His Majesty bestowed a reward? Eunuch Li nodded. Du Pingting became even more excited, practically overjoyed. Everyone knelt down together, and then they heard Eunuch Li speak. The Emperor's oral decree. Wei Lu, who was on duty at the Western Hills that day, performed his duties with utmost loyalty and dedication. He is hereby rewarded with 20 taels of silver. Du Pingting's smile froze on her face. She murmured, that's it. Eunuch Li frowned and said, Madam, it is only by the Emperor's grace that each person on duty at the Western Hills was granted 20 taels of silver. What more do you want? He had heard about Wei Lu's indecent behavior that day. The Emperor did not hold it against him. In the aftermath of the disaster, he rewarded everyone present with silver and did not punish Wei Lu. What more could be done? Eunuch Li was in a hurry to deliver rewards to other households and left impatiently. Du Pingting wanted to chase after him. My husband saved. Wei Lu finally grabbed hold of Du Pingting. At this point, he had no choice but to lower his head and say, the one who saved the Emperor was Yunshu. Du Pingting widened her eyes. She said in panic, how is that possible? Wei Lu said, it's true. Over the past few days, I've gradually been dreaming about events from my previous life. In my previous life, I was actually the one Yunshu pushed out. Du Pingting suddenly collapsed to the ground. What happened after that? And how did you manage to defeat a larger force with fewer troops and protect the Emperor during the palace coup? Wei Lu asked awkwardly. I haven't dreamed of that part yet, but judging from the current situation, it must have all been taught to me by Yunshu. I was merely her puppet. Du Pingting fainted. I only learned about these events at the Du residence later, when Xiaotsue and the others told me. By then, I was already seated in the palace. The Emperor sat high on the dragon throne, raised his hand to signal, and the attendants brought the waist token, sword, and official uniform of the palace command in front of me. I was able to escape safely this time. Thanks to Minister Yun, I kneel in gratitude for the imperial favor. Your servant was merely fortunate. On that day, I set up tripwires originally intended to trip wild deer and antelope, and the animal traps were only meant to catch bears. I never expected they would serve another purpose, the Emperor said calmly. Minister Yun, there is no need for modesty. Even if the equipment was a matter of luck, The composure you displayed at that time truly reflected the demeanor of a great general. Thus, the emperor appointed me as the commander of the imperial guards. This position is much higher than the one Wei Lu held in my previous life. If nothing unexpected happens, once the palace coup occurs and I successfully rescue the emperor with a smaller force defeating a larger one, I can replicate the path of my previous life. However, I never expected that 1 month after I was appointed as the commander, Du Pingting entered the palace. Du Pingting came to report me. She claimed to have evidence of a major crime committed by the commander of the palace command, Yun Shu, so the emperor personally summoned her. At this moment, she knelt before the throne, speaking to the emperor. Your Majesty, although I am Du Yunshu's sister, I am first and foremost your subject, therefore, I must uphold justice over family ties and expose Du Yunshu's crime of deceiving the emperor. Du Yunshu is actually a woman, yet she posed as a man to save your Majesty and entered the palace command to serve as an official. This act violates moral principles. To prevent her from continuing down this path of error, I had no choice but to inform your Majesty. Du Pingting shed tears. Looking pitiful and delicate, the emperor sat on the high dragon throne, resting his chin on his hand. The beads hanging from his jade crown obscured the expression on the Son of Heaven's face, making it impossible to discern his thoughts. After a long while, the emperor said, "All non-essential personnel may leave now." The chief eunuch, being perceptive, immediately led all the palace attendants to withdraw. Only the emperor, Du Pingting, and I remained in the hall. The emperor stood up and approached Du Pingting, lifting her chin with his hand. Du Pingting's almond-shaped eyes were filled with tears, and her makeup was exquisitely beautiful. The emperor chuckled softly and said, "You've dressed up deliberately, haven't you?" Du Pingting's thoughts were suddenly seen through, and she couldn't help but blush. I watched coldly from the side, understanding very well. In the emperor's harem, there were several widows of former court officials. Thus, people privately speculated that the emperor might have a preference for married women. Sure enough, the emperor asked Du Pingting, "Where is your husband?" Du Pingting quickly replied, "My husband was Wei Lu, a 7th-rank imperial guard. A few days ago, he fell seriously ill and suddenly passed away." My heart became as clear as snow. Du Pingting realized that all her efforts over such a long time had been nothing but a farce, and she felt even more disgusted than if she had swallowed a fly. She had poisoned Wei Lu to death, and now she has entered the palace. Taking a chance to be noticed by the emperor, Du Pingting has always been confident in her appearance. Since she was young, any man who has seen her true face has been captivated. The emperor smiled. He said, "Indeed, very beautiful. So, my beauty, how would you like me to deal with Yunqing?" Du Pingting, having received the emperor's praise, was overjoyed and quickly said, "Although I am foolish, I know the rules left by our ancestors. Women are not allowed to serve as court officials. If this person is not severely punished, it will surely become a subject of public criticism. Therefore, I believe your Majesty should bestow a white silk ribbon." The emperor laughed heartily. "Good, very good. Bestow the white silk ribbon." He clapped his hands, and the trusted palace maid waiting outside entered, holding a white silk ribbon in hand. The emperor said coldly, "Take her away." Du Pingting froze, because he realized that the person the emperor was pointing at was himself. "Your Majesty, have you made a mistake?" The emperor smiled faintly. He said, "There's no other way. Yunqing is a rare talent that I have found." Du Pingting was dumbfounded. She cried out, "But your Majesty, she is a woman. Our ancestors have decreed that women cannot serve as officials in the court." The emperor walked up to Du Pingting. He whispered, "Our ancestors also decreed that women cannot ascend the throne." Du Pingting continued to cry out, but gradually, as if she had realized something, her eyes widened in fear. The emperor smiled. The hanging beads of his crown obscured his face, and concealed his secret. Yes, this was the final secret I learned during the palace coup in my previous life. The current emperor is not the 5th prince of the late emperor, but the 5th princess. That is why, in this life, I realized I could enter the court as an official without relying on any man. Du Pingting thought she had caught my weakness. But she didn't realize that I dared to leave such a big weakness exposed precisely because I knew it couldn't control me. Du Pingting was dragged out by the palace maids. She has learned the greatest secret of the dynasty, and the emperor can no longer let her live. The emperor returned to the dragon throne. She said calmly, Do you think I am ruthless? I bowed and replied, not ruthless, but the way of an emperor. She laughed. Yunqing is highly skilled in martial arts, and surprisingly, you also have a silver tongue. You should have known long ago that I am a woman, right? I shook my head. No, I only just found out. Emperors are often suspicious, and I didn't want her to realize I was reborn, as that would likely make her wary of me. But the emperor interrupted me and said calmly, stop pretending. I am very pleased that it is you who has appeared in this life, not Wei Lu. I was startled, then my entire body trembled. The amount of information in this single sentence was simply overwhelming. Her Majesty is actually reborn as well. Don't mention it. In my previous life, although I survived the palace coup orchestrated by the Prince of Ning, there was a eunuch by my side who was a remnant of the Prince of Ning's faction. He administered a slow-acting poison to me, which caused me to die suddenly several months later. Having been reborn, I hope to avoid the mistakes of my past life and restore the nation. Therefore, I naturally need to keep the talents I discovered in my previous life by my side. Do you know who the virtuous consort, the beautiful consort, and Lady Liu Jiaoyi in the palace are? These are the married women that His Majesty has taken a liking to. Consort Shu is the wife of the current top scholar. Her husband's governance strategy once amazed the Imperial Academy, but in fact, the true author was Consort Shu. Consort Li's husband is the Vice Minister of Rights, but in reality, Consort Li manages all the accounts of the Ministry of Rights, and there's Lady Liu Jiaoyi, who is the concubine of the jade-faced Divine Constable, but in fact, the so-called Divine Constable solves cases entirely relying on Lady Liu, while he himself is nothing but a pretty face. I understand. These women are truly talented individuals. The Emperor's so-called fondness for married women was actually a way to keep them by his side, forming a small court. And you? I have long known that you are the one behind Wei Lu. The Emperor walked up to me. The assassination attempt at West Mountain was staged by me, after all. The assassin was sent by Prince Ning, and I needed to lull him into a false sense of security. But I am very happy that in this lifetime, you have come to me in person. Tears welled up in his eyes. I knelt down. Your Majesty's great kindness. The Emperor sighed. What a pity. Worldly prejudices. Even I cannot defy them. If I were a prince, then after ascending the throne and taking a married woman as a consort, the court officials would at most offer a few words of advice, without harming the foundation. But if I were a princess, no matter how great my ambitions and strategies, in the end, I could only take a consort. I raised my head and said, worldly prejudices are indeed difficult to change, but they are not impossible to change, since our generation is beyond change. I humbly beseech your Majesty to begin with the next generation. The Emperor raised her head and gazed at the rivers and mountains outside the window. After a long while, she said, so be it. In the 8th year of Chen Yuan, I was appointed as the commander of the palace command, in charge of the imperial guards. In the 9th year of Chen Yuan, the Emperor exonerated my mother's maternal family, the Yun family. In the 12th year of Chen Yuan, the official school for women was established, providing opportunities for both noble ladies and common girls to study. With my guidance, Xiao Kui became one of the first students of the official school for women. I accompanied her to her mother's grave. She held the jade pendant in her hand and shed tears. Mother, I've made something of myself. Do you see it? That jade pendant was Xiaocui's mother's keepsake. She had once pawned it to raise money for me. Now, I have redeemed it and returned it to Xiaocui. Xiaocui placed the jade pendant in front of her mother's grave. A breeze blew by, and the mountain flowers blazed brightly. A generation has passed away, and the next generation is moving toward new hope. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. On the day of the grand wedding, the substitute bride I had hired at great expense entered the bridal sedan chair in a splendid and glorious manner. I blended into the crowd to watch the excitement. A young gentleman watching nearby asked me, which family is this wedding procession for, such a grand display? I was so frightened that I immediately turned and ran. Fiancé, why did you run away from the wedding too? The Ling family's wedding procession marched grandly through the long street, and I blended into the crowd to watch the excitement. Which family's wedding procession is this, with such a grand display? The young master beside me asked. Other than the Ling family of linen, who else could have such extravagance? I turned my head, about to respond to him. Naturally, you're home, Ling Q. What are you doing here? Without thinking twice, I took off running, but I bumped into a burly man behind me. I quickly apologized repeatedly. The man glared at me, raised his hand, and it looked like a slap was about to land on my face. A hand reached past me, firmly stopping the big man. Mind your own business. The big man tried to shake him off, but the hand didn't budge an inch. How much silver do you want? Truly worthy of the Ling family, nothing that can be solved with money is a problem. The big man got a good deal, took the money, and left. I had no choice but to turn around and thank my benefactor. I don't recall having offended you, miss. Why do you treat me as if I were a flood or a wild beast? Ling Q looked at her with confusion. No wonder I was scared. For a moment there, I really thought Ling Q had come to take me back for the wedding ceremony. It seems now that he doesn't recognize me. I had a dream last night that I was being chased by someone. And you bear some resemblance to the person in my dream, which is why I was frightened. I made up on the spot. I find you somewhat familiar as well. Perhaps I've seen you in a dream too, Ling Q said, his gaze fixed intently on me. I felt as if I were being tortured, subjected to the judgment of his gaze. Perhaps this is fate. He spoke only after scrutinizing me for a while. Fate, truly fate. We even managed to run into each other while fleeing from our weddings to watch the commotion. I forced a dry laugh to brush it off. After parting ways with him, I continued to the Ling residence to gather information. If the brides and grooms are all here, then who is performing the wedding ceremony at the Ling residence? Ling Q actually followed. Young master, if you just go to the Ling family's doorstep like this, won't you be recognized? I rarely ever leave the house, and when I do go out, I always wear a veil with my elder sister. The young master of the Ling family has been frail and sickly since childhood and seldom goes out. Recalling the news my elder brother had brought back, I fell silent, physically weak. How did he manage to restrain that big man with his bare hands? I shook my head. There was no use dwelling on it now. After all, I had successfully escaped the marriage. The bridal sedan chair stopped in front of the Ling residence, amidst the clamor of gongs and drums. Yet the groom did not come out to greet the bride for quite some time. Originally, the Ling family had agreed with my father that Ling Q was in poor health and should not personally come to my home to fetch the bride. But the bridal sedan had already arrived. Naturally, the groom could not come out. Ling Q is right by my side. The guests at the door are whispering among themselves. Even before entering, the Ling residence is already treating the bride with such coldness. Something terrible has happened. The eldest young master is not in the residence. Someone from the Ling residence shouted loudly, "He is here, otherwise, why don't you all look over here?" I was just thinking about whether to expose this person when I saw the substitute bride I had hired at great expense lift the curtain and step out of the sedan, directly removing her bridal veil. Someone recognized that it was not me. Why has Miss Shen been replaced too? I watched with my own eyes as the substitute bride in the bright red wedding dress used Qinggong to fly away, escaping all the way outside the city under everyone's watchful eyes. Did I hire you at a high price to do this? Have you even performed the wedding ceremony with Ling Q's substitute bride before running away? Did the bride just run away? Ling Q asked me from the side. She ran away. She really ran away. The fake one has run away too. I originally planned to go home in half a month. By then, my older brothers and sisters should have already prepared our parents mentally. I would just go back and reflect on my mistakes for a few months. Now, Miss Shen II has run away from her wedding in front of everyone. If the bride runs away like this at the young master's wedding, what would you plan to do? Since she's already run away, I might as well ask the person involved for their opinion first. Ling Q pretended to ponder seriously. Go to their house the next day and demand the betrothal gifts back. That makes sense. The marriage fell through, and I thought Ling Q should take the opportunity to go back, pretending he never ran away, and come tomorrow to demand his betrothal gifts. But as soon as I took 2 steps, he caught up to me, saying he had given all his money to that burly man and now had nothing left. With nowhere to go, young Master Ling, your home is right in front of you. I will not repay a drop of kindness with my whole self, nor will I serve like an ox or a horse, but I cannot let my benefactor wander the streets, so I grit my teeth and take Ling Q to an inn. We tried 4 inns, but all were fully booked. The 5th inn had only one room left. I had no idea that running an inn in Linen was such a booming business. Is there a woodshed in the inn? I can make do for the night. Ling Qiu asked the waiter proactively. The waiter looked troubled. Young master, please don't fight for our beds. Each of us servants has one bed, all accounted for by the innkeeper. What a thrifty shopkeeper. Don't worry, benefactor, I can sleep on the floor. I've never slept before, so it's no problem. Running away from marriage requires some hardship. I carefully laid out 3 layers of bedding, afraid I wouldn't sleep comfortably. After finishing the bedding, Ling Qiu returned from bathing in the water room. I should sleep on the floor instead. A young lady's constitution is delicate. It wouldn't be good for you to catch a chill at night. Why didn't you say so earlier? Thank you, benefactor. May I ask your honorable name? I expressed my gratitude with tears in my eyes, poured a glass of water from the table, and handed it over. I waited for Ling Qiu to speak. I am Yang Ju, Ling Qiu said. I remembered that, according to the information my elder brother had gathered, Yang Ju was one of Ling Qiu's few close friends. May I ask for the young lady's name? Ling Qiu politely took the water glass but did not drink. My surname is Jiang, and my given name is Wanqiao. May I call you Miss Xiaoqiao? Absolutely wonderful. Xiaoqiao, I'll borrow your name for a moment. That evening, as soon as I hung up the bed curtain, I fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, I woke up to find that the frail and sickly eldest young master Ling had developed a fever. I went out to fetch a doctor to examine him. The doctor said, even if you're arguing, you shouldn't drive your husband to sleep on the floor. His constitution is weak. He can't handle such treatment. Together with the doctor, I moved Ling Qiu to the bed. As for the doctor's earnest advice, I could only nod in agreement, thinking that since it was just this one time, he could think whatever he wanted. I am innocent and upright, with a clear conscience. The doctor then asked me to go back with him to pick up some medicine, and on the way, he quietly shared some tips with me. If your husband throws a tantrum and refuses to take the medicine, just feed it to him. By then, any minor conflicts will have been resolved. Doctor, are you overthinking this? I never expected the doctor's words to come true. I paid the waiter to help brew the medicine and bring it over. I personally held the medicine and fed it to him with a spoon. The young master wouldn't even open his mouth. And the medicine all spilled onto the cloth I had wrapped around his head. Drink it or not, it's up to you. Just die then. I tried to wake him up so he could drink it himself. You cannot wake someone who is pretending to sleep, nor someone who has fainted. I reached out and touched his forehead. It was frighteningly hot. My own forehead has never been that hot. His face was also deathly pale. Without medicine, he might really die. Yesterday, you called me your savior. Today, you're sending me to my grave. Although I was dissatisfied with the marriage arranged by my parents, there was truly no enmity between Ling Qiu and me. I, a lady of noble character, can adapt to any situation. Saving a life is a greater virtue than building a 7-story pagoda. I was merely repaying a favor and had no intention of disrespecting you, sir. I closed my eyes and fed the medicine to Ling Qiu, repeating the process several times. When I got up to wipe my mouth with a handkerchief, I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye. Ling Qiu opened his eyes. When did you wake up? Young master. Ling Qiu looked at me with a bewildered expression, clearly about to misunderstand something. I had no choice but to resort to this because I couldn't wake you earlier. I apologize for the offense, young master, and hope you won't take it to heart. I was so nervous and anxious to explain that I even used hand gestures, and my flailing hands were caught in front of him. He spoke weakly. I will take responsibility. Ling Qiu completely ignored what I said. The young lady is already engaged. I steeled myself and spoke frankly. The young lady did not lie either. My parents truly did arrange a marriage for me, so that's how it is. Ling Qiu released my hand. His gaze dimming. I will keep today's matter strictly confidential. No third person must ever know about this. I nodded. Suddenly, I heard a sound. I saw the waiter coming to deliver the second dose of medicine. He said he saw nothing. I believe it. Sir, your medicine is here. The waiter set down the tray, quickly exited, and closed the door behind him. No one else must know about this. I brought the medicine over to Ling Qiu and went downstairs to give the waiter hush money. After sealing the deal, I stopped by the Snow Moon Pavilion to demand justice for the runaway substitute bride I had hired at great expense, who had fled in front of everyone. Refund the money. The money must be refunded. As soon as the manager of the Snow Moon Pavilion saw me, he led me into a private room and treated me with great care, asking how I wanted to resolve the matter. Incompetent service, full refund. But, didn't Sister Ryue take your place in the bridal sedan for you, miss? Was the wedding ceremony held? Did she get to see the groom? In the end, they refunded 70% of my silver. I originally only planned to get back half. Now it's even better, staying at the inn for 2 months won't be a problem. On the way, I inquired about the Shen family's situation. My father found out that Ling Qiu also ran away from the marriage and firmly insisted it was the Ling family's fault. As for me, I left in public because I was overwhelmed with grief. I went back and asked the inn attendant if there were any new vacant rooms. Thank heavens, the guest in the next room had just left this morning. I paid extra to move in. Now I could rest peacefully for a few days, except that I still had to take care of the person next door, while I was figuring out how to clean his body. The inn attendant knocked on the door and asked if I needed hot water. I paid the waiter directly to take care of Ling Qiu. Soon, it was the Qixi festival, the day before. Ling Qiu had the waiter deliver an invitation, asking me to accompany him. I pretended not to see it. The city at night is bustling with excitement, and I stepped out in a new outfit. As I reached the intersection, I saw him standing under the lantern with his arms crossed, as if he had been waiting there for a long time. Just as he saw me approaching, the corners of his eyes crinkled, and he even said, "What a coincidence." Ling Qiu's smile carried a youthful charm. And I couldn't bring myself to contradict him. I just walked past him, and he followed along. I couldn't shake him off, so I had no choice but to let him follow. The street was crowded with people, and I was nearly pushed to the ground. Ling Qiu quickly reached out to steady me and didn't let go. His intentions were too obvious, but I didn't want to call him out on it. "It's just, young Master Ling. Do you know that I am the very Miss Shen you've been trying to avoid?" As usual, I bought a lantern to release by the river, and Ling Qiu grabbed me, saying he wanted one too. In order to stay at the inn, he has always maintained the persona of being penniless. I'll just consider it a loan to him, and I'll definitely make him pay me back double later. Ling Qiu picked a lantern of the same style as the one in my hand. Xiao Qiao has good taste. Before taking out my purse, I glanced at the lantern again and reminded him. "Does young Master Yang remember that I mentioned my family has already arranged a marriage for me?" Ling Qiu hesitated before speaking. "Is it not even allowed to release lanterns together? Moreover, Miss Jiang is also following her parents' wishes, isn't she? I've never heard you mention him before." I couldn't argue with him. As we walked toward the river with our lanterns, in front of the brightly lit tavern, I suddenly saw Jiang Wanxiao coming out from inside. I stopped in my tracks and suddenly pointed to a stall, saying I wanted to go over and buy a pearl hairpin. Fortunately, Jiang Wanxiao didn't come this way. Otherwise, with her loud voice, she would have rushed over and shouted my name upon seeing me, using the hairpin as an excuse. I watched as Ling Qiu seriously examined the stall for a long time, picked one out, and placed it in my hair. I had actually taken a liking to this one too, which is why I didn't stop him. The stall owner smiled warmly and said, "Buy one for your young lady, it suits her very well." I paid the silver expressionlessly. I found an open spot by the river, placed the flower lantern in the water, and clasped my hands together to make a wish. "May everything go smoothly." Ling Qiu crouched beside me, mimicking my actions. "May Miss Jiang be safe and sound every year." Should I remind him that a wish won't come true if spoken aloud? It shouldn't matter. Jiang Wanxiao can protect herself. I stood up and suddenly noticed another person I recognized. "Thank you, young Master Yang Ju." I deliberately raised my voice and said. Ling Qiu smiled, but before he could stand up, he heard someone walking and saying, "No need to be polite." "Huh, who are you?" I tilted my head, and the newcomer followed my gaze and saw Ling Qiu. He strode over and pulled Ling Qiu up. "Ling Qiu, why are you here? Your father has been looking for you for quite some time." "Perfect timing. Come back with me today." Ling Qiu, I chewed on the words, putting on a puzzled expression. Yang Ju looked at us and immediately understood. "So that's it, you're using my name to flirt with girls out there." "Miss, I am Yang Ju, and he is Ling Qiu. He is already engaged, so don't let him deceive you. Yang Ju is a good person, Miss Jiang." "Let me explain." Ling Qiu walked up to me. "There is nothing between us. I will go back and break off the engagement. Please believe me." "Okay, me too." Under Yang Ju's astonished gaze, I smiled and nodded. Ling Qiu, you must keep your promise, and remember to return the money. Seeing that I agreed, Ling Qiu then went back with Yang Ju. Having received Ling Qiu's promise, I returned home the next day. As soon as I entered the courtyard gate, the steward invited me to the front yard. Grandmother, father, mother, eldest brother, and eldest sister were all seated above, while I knelt alone in the center. It appeared solemn and imposing, but little did anyone know that, except for my father, the other four were there to plead on my behalf. In the past, 2 or 3 people would have been enough to get me off the hook, but today the situation was serious, requiring everyone to join forces. Reflect on your mistakes by kneeling in the ancestral hall, Master Shen said sternly. Grandmother, Huaya has grown much thinner and cannot kneel, Mother said. The ancestral hall is cold at night. Let her do it in her own courtyard. Eldest sister, father, you arranged the engagement for second sister without considering her wishes. She had no other choice. Elder brother, that boy from the Ling family doesn't even have second sister in his heart. If second sister marries him, she'll only suffer. Shen Yuehuai, come with me to the study. Master Shen stood up, passed by me, and singled me out to follow him. I comforted them one by one, telling them not to worry and that I would be back soon. Since you don't think much of the Ling family, in my opinion, there's no need for punishment. Starting tomorrow, I'll arrange for you to meet with young masters from other families, one by one. Escape one Ling Qiu, and there will be thousands more Ling Qius. Father, why are you in such a hurry to send me away? When you were a child, the fortune teller said that if you did not leave the mansion before the age of 20, a great disaster would befall you. Master Shen sighed. I pouted and stepped forward to comfort him, saying that the words of the fortune teller should not be taken too seriously. How dare I not believe it? Master Shen's concern was not without reason. That Taoist also said I would face a great calamity at the age of 12. When I was 12, the household took great care of me everywhere, but during a banquet with many guests and prying eyes, I was still pushed into the garden pond. Fortunately, I was discovered in time, so I didn't lose my life. The person who pushed me was none other than the concubine of the Ling family, though I don't know when I had offended her. Later, I heard that Lord Ling had her sent to a farmstead, and only then did my father drop the matter. My father had also remembered past grievances. But when he consulted a fortune teller to compare our birth dates, it was said that Ling Qiu and I were a perfect match, destined to be together. A few couples whose horoscopes were matched by that man in previous instances. My father had people inquire about them, and indeed they were all harmonious and complete. So, disregarding my short-sighted views as a young woman, he settled on this marriage. I begged my elder brother to secretly take me out to see Ling Qiu once. At that time, he seemed to have just recovered from a serious illness and was sitting among a group of young gentlemen, looking quite frail and delicate. Throughout the gathering, he didn't say a single word. I couldn't help but think how dreadful it would be to face such a lifeless person day after day. So, I decided to go all the way and found a substitute bride to anger Ling Qiu, forcing him to write a letter of divorce. If that didn't work, I'd beat him until he wrote it, of course. That was the last resort. A few days later, after meeting with young Master Tang and returning to the mansion, Jiang Guanxiao was waiting for me at the entrance of the Shen residence. As soon as I stepped down from the carriage, she rushed over and accused. Today, Ling Qiu came to my house looking for me and told my father that I am his beloved. My father sent me out to inquire, and the moment Ling Qiu saw me, his face turned pale with shock. But what did you do to him using my name? Ling Qiu actually went to the Jiang family. How did you know it was me? I wondered. When did Xiao Qiao become so sharp-witted? I asked Yangshu and the others, and they all said it wasn't them. So it was the process of elimination. I don't care. I got scolded by my father because of this. So you have to make it up to me, Jiang Guanxiao said with a pitiful expression. All right, I'll take you to the restaurant for a meal tomorrow. I readily agreed. Jiang Guanxiao immediately beamed with joy upon hearing this. Jiang Guanxiao was restless and uneasy. At that moment, seated in the private room were me, her, and young Master Shu. Young Master Shu fawned with a flattering smile. What do you mean by this, Miss Shen? It's just a casual meal. This is my childhood friend Jiang Guanxiao, who happened to be in the area, Shu Jichen said sarcastically. If that's the case, Miss Shen, Why don't we eat downstairs in the main hall? It's livelier there. Sounds good. I stood up and asked the waiter to change our table. Worried that Xu Ziqian might think I was trying to save him money, I generously offered to pay for the meal and told the two of them to order whatever they liked. Jiang Guanxiao ordered 7 dishes in one go, watching the storyteller on stage with great interest, occasionally asking Xu Ziqian for his opinion, interrupting his attempts to converse with me. Xiao Qiao is so lovely, we really should take her out to eat more often. I never expected that young Master Xu would take the matter to my father. After dinner in the evening, my father summoned me to his study. My father spoke to me with deep sorrow and demanded that I stay at home these days. Thanks to young Master Xu, I am free again and no longer need to meet other young masters in the city. Before I left the study, my father called out to me again. Tomorrow, the Ling family will come to discuss the cancellation of the marriage contract. You should come to the front courtyard as well. It turns out, I am still bound by a marriage contract. Young Master Tang, young Master Xu, why are you two so impatient? When my father sent someone to call for me, he said the people from the Ling residence were already drinking tea in the front courtyard. I walked over slowly, but as soon as I entered, I was so startled that I turned around and immediately went out. Turning right, the maid following me had no sense of awareness. Standing dumbly at the door watching me, my father asked her from inside, "Where is the second young lady?" The little maid honestly pointed in my direction. Why has Ling Qiu come in person? Indeed, he never tells lies. He wants to personally take back the betrothal gifts. Please excuse my daughter's behavior. She has been spoiled by me since childhood. It's no trouble. Miss Shen probably just doesn't wish to see me. I am not upset. Ling Qiu's clear voice rang out. It suddenly occurred to me that the person speaking in my recent dreams was him. Daydreaming, night dreaming. I shook my head, lifted my skirt, stepped over the threshold, and went in to demand repayment from him. As soon as I stepped inside, Ling Qiu glanced over impatiently, then suddenly froze and abruptly stood up. Both my father and I were startled. "Are you Shen Yuehuai?" Ling Qiu asked softly. My father snorted coldly. "If it's not her, then who else could it be?" "Xiao Huai, don't be rude, come and greet him." I had already composed my expression and went over to give him a graceful bow. "Young Master Ling, I, a humble woman, have no fate with you, young master. Meeting today, we can part on good terms. Have you brought the marriage certificate?" Seeing that I had arrived, my father took out our family's copy of the marriage certificate and slapped it on the table. Ling Qiu instinctively tightened his collar. I was in such a hurry when I left today that I actually forgot it. "Ling Qiu, when did you learn to lie? I suspect his marriage certificate is on him, but I have no evidence." My father also had no suspicions and, adhering to the principle that a guest is always welcome, politely invited him to stay for a meal. In reality, he was just about to see him out after saying that. Unexpectedly, Ling Qiu nodded and said, "Thank you, father-in-law. What are you shouting about?" My father was also taken aback for a moment, but quickly realized that the marriage contract was still in effect, so Ling Qiu's form of address was actually appropriate. Then, "Young master, would you like to accompany this old man to the side room for some tea? Or perhaps, let my daughter show you around the estate?" Ling Qiu indeed turned toward me. "Then I'll trouble Miss Yuehuai for the trouble. Please call me Miss Shen." Why is Ling Qiu's politeness so inconsistent? My father didn't understand, but he cheerfully instructed me not to neglect the guest. I had no choice but to lead Ling Qiu around the Shen residence aimlessly. I avoided the lotus pond, peach trees, and the small pavilion altogether, only taking the narrow path winding through the crevices of the rugged mountain rocks. The people of the Shen residence had no sense of perception. I walked expressionlessly beside Ling Qiu, yet they kept greeting us with "Hello, second miss," and "Hello, second son-in-law. Aren't you aware that the engagement is about to be called off?" So, I compromised and decided to take Ling Qiu to the small pavilion for a sit-down, just to avoid the annoyance of hearing them address him as son-in-law. Ling Qiu remained silent the whole way, and I didn't bother to wonder what was on his mind. "Young Master Ling, you didn't bring the marriage certificate today, but did you bring any silver?" "I did," he immediately replied. "Return the silver I lent you earlier for buying clothes. I won't bother you about the meal expenses. It's not enough," Ling Qiu said. "I didn't bring much with me today. How about I leave my jade pendant with you as a pledge, and I'll come back with the silver to redeem it soon?" Ling Qiu grabbed my hand and, with his other hand, untied the jade pendant hanging from his waist. I quickly refused. No need, I trust your character, young Master Ling. A young lady should not casually accept tokens from other men. Who is my sister pulling and tugging with out there, in broad daylight, under the clear sky? Bring them over so I can take a look. My eldest sister's voice came from the pavilion, and I realized she was there with her maid, enjoying the cool air. Wasn't it said that the Ling family would visit today? My eldest brother, after placing a piece on the board, looked up and over at us. I took the opportunity to shake off Ling Qiu's hand and stepped forward. Yes, father invited them to stay for a meal, so I brought him around the estate for a walk. Shen Baiwei looked at Ling Qiu with a smile. This must be my brother-in-law, right? Do you know how to play chess? Come and have a game with me. I forgot that Shen Baiwei only stands by my side when I'm being criticized. Ling Qiu replied honestly, I don't know how. This was exactly what she wanted. Shen Baiwei had Shen Kui clear the chessboard to make room for her brother-in-law. Shen Kui soon had no choice but to stand with me, watching them play chess and witnessing Ling Qiu being utterly defeated. Ling Qiu really didn't know how to play. Even I could beat him if I were in his place. After Shen Baiwei won one game, she said she was tired and asked me to take her place. It's always better to have a biological sister. I sat down, about to win the first game of chess in my life. Little did I know that Ling Qiu had been pretending all along. He clearly knew how to play chess. In the gentle breeze, he defeated me so thoroughly that I had no pieces left, then gave me a faint smile and said, Thank you for letting me win. Shen Baiwei had already covered her face, laughing so hard she couldn't make a sound. I have a sworn enmity with Go. During dinner, when they heard that second son-in-law was present, mother and grandmother both came to the front courtyard to dine together. After finishing the game of Go, I wanted to feign illness, but my eldest sister forcibly dragged me over. Do any of you still remember that Ling Qiu came today intending to break off the engagement? Everyone at the gathering was dignified, and no one brought up the matter. The atmosphere was joyful as they drank and chatted merrily. By the time the banquet ended, the bright moon hung high in the sky. Ling Qiu, who had been accepting every toast without refusal, had already forced himself to finish 2 pots of wine. If you don't get drunk, who will? Master Shen instructed me to escort him back using the Shen family's carriage. That guy came on horseback this morning. You're getting carried away, drinking so much alcohol. The round trip would take about 2 hours. After passing several streets, I lifted the carriage curtain and saw the brightly lit night market. I thought to myself, why not just have the coachman drop me off and pick me up later on the way back? I was just about to open the car door to stop him when Ling Qiu seemed to sense my intention and grabbed my outstretched hand. Shen Yuehuai, you're so beautiful. You can't trust the words of a drunk. That's what I thought. Yet the warmth still crept up my face. Little by little, it must be too hot in this carriage. Can we not call off the engagement? Ling Qiu leaned closer. The light in the car was dim, but I could see the sparkle in his pupils. You're not trying to get out of paying me back, are you? That was my first reaction. Surprisingly, I'll pay you back double, triple. My silver is all yours. I have so much silver, Ling Qiu said, trying to untie his jade pendant to give to me again. This time his hands became clumsy. He fumbled with one hand for a long time but couldn't untie it, while the other hand refused to let go of me, afraid I would run away, seeing him so anxious. I actually felt happy, an inexplicable joy welling up inside me. After a while, I reached out to help him untie it, and he grabbed my hand, holding the jade pendant. For you, will you accept it? Shen Yuehuai, please take it. He held my hands, asking over and over again, why? I asked him. I like you. I fell in love with you at first sight. An expected answer. If on our wedding day, I had told you that I am Shen Yuehuai, would you still have fallen in love with me at first sight? I suddenly feel a bit envious of him. When he met me, he didn't know who I was, so he followed his heart without hesitation. But I always knew he was Ling Qiu, the very Ling Qiu I had tried so hard to escape. Even if he isn't that silent and reserved Ling Qiu, but he is indeed Ling Qiu, the one I was betrothed to. I ran away from the marriage, and then, I fell in love with the person I was supposed to marry. If I didn't know he was Ling Qiu, and he told me he was Yang Ju, could I have accepted it without hesitation? I like Yang Ju, I like Ling Qiu. He seemed unable to understand my long-winded sentence and stubbornly insisted that I take the jade pendant. In the end, I didn't accept it. I pushed the jade pendant back to him. If you truly want to give it to me, come to me sober and tell me the reason why you want to give it to me. Words spoken under the influence of alcohol can be both true and false. I'd like to believe he used the alcohol to muster courage, but I'd rather believe what he says tomorrow when he's sober. Shinua Huai, I'm not a silent type. He began chattering incessantly in my ear, refuting what I had said earlier. You're noisy, I said. Who said he was a man of few words? He talks a mile a minute. Shinua Huai, I won't die young. I won't let you become a widow for me. Who said I would become a widow for you? If you want to clarify things, just clarify them, don't spread rumors about me. Shinua Huai, Fu, how much longer until we arrive? I couldn't bear it any longer. At that moment, I wished Ling Qiu was genuinely a man of few words. Early the next morning, someone woke me up, saying the young master was waiting for me at the door and wanted to take me out of the city for a spring outing. It's September, what kind of spring outing are you talking about? I changed into clothes suitable for going out of the city, but when I stepped outside and saw only one person and one horse, I turned around and headed back inside. Yua Huai, Ling Qiu quickly let go of the reins, trotted over, and grabbed me. My riding skills are excellent. I definitely won't let you fall. This isn't about falling or not. Riding out of the city together on the same horse. Making such a spectacle of ourselves. Tomorrow, the whole of Linen will know we're a couple. Take the carriage, or I'll go back. I had the servant bring the carriage over. Ling Qiu reluctantly handed his horse over to my household staff. Once in the carriage, Ling Qiu sat down beside me with a cheerful smile and whispered, I remember everything. Did you remember to bring silver? I extended my hand toward him. He untied a pouch and tossed it to me. It's quite heavy. I open it, and sure enough, the jade pendant from last night is mixed in with the broken silver. Seeing that I'm about to take it out, he quickly covers my hand and says, my mother said I should give it to the one I love, but I've failed to give it away 3 times. I want to take a look. I never said I wouldn't accept it. He hesitantly let go, watching nervously as I played with his jade pendant. You haven't said it yet. What, if on our wedding day, I told you that I am Shinua Huai? Would you still have fallen in love with me at first sight? Ling Qiu covered his face and sighed. My heart sank. He spat out each word one by one. I would just drag you straight into the Ling residence to get married. That's not what you said back then. You said you were going to come to my house and take back the betrothal gifts. Did you know back then that I was Ling Qiu? This was also something Ling Qiu cared about. I didn't know him before, so it made sense to run away from the marriage. But even after getting to know him, it seems I still only think about breaking off the engagement. I thought to myself at the time, my dear husband, why didn't you tell me you were going to run away from the marriage? It's enough if one of us runs away. It would be too outrageous if both of us ran away. What did you call me? Ling Qiu's focus was oddly specific. Ling Qiu, I called him. Ling Qiu looked at me seriously. I couldn't handle it and averted my gaze again. Too straightforward. I can even clearly see through his thoughts. Can I kiss you? Your feelings are written all over your face. Is that okay? Shinua Huai, can I kiss you? If you want to kiss, just do it. Why ask so many questions? I can't take it anymore. Ling Qiu was taken aback for a moment, then warmly embraced me. I opened my eyes, his eyelashes fluttering close to mine. Only when his eyes were closed did I dare to look at him so boldly. His dark pupils reflected me within them, as if one glance would draw me in completely. I was lost in thought for a moment, and he bit me lightly in dissatisfaction, opening his eyes to ask, what are you thinking about? I was wrong. How about you do it again? A woman knows when to yield and when to stand firm, and corrects her mistakes when she realizes them, mainly because Ling Qiu's kisses were so comfortable, and he held me so tightly. Nonsense. Marriage is not a child's play. We discussed with Master Shen to proceed with the marriage arrangement as planned. My father was so furious that his beard seemed to bristle, and he drove Ling Qiu out of the estate, ordering him not to return without the marriage certificate next time. 2 months ago, we held a grand wedding for you, but you turned it into a complete mess. The entire Linen is laughing at our 2 families, and now you say you're willing to marry. Are you still not satisfied that I, your father, have not lost enough face? Then let's set the wedding date for next year or the year after. My daughter is in no hurry to leave home either. My father has a point, but when it comes to matters of the heart, I can't control it either. In Linen now, The only one I have my eye on is Ling Q, rarely. Even my elder brother and sister think we're just fooling around. Only my mother says that as long as I think it's good, then it's good. It seems that compared to my situation, Ling Q's side is even more severe. Since he was sent back by my father, I haven't heard a word from him for a full 2 weeks. Yang Shu knows Yang Ju's younger sister, Yang Ling, so I asked her to arrange a meeting with Yang Ling for me to inquire about Ling Q's situation. Ling Q also seemed to have the same idea and asked Yang Ju to relay a message on his behalf. He was just given a lesson and is temporarily unable to come out, so he told me not to worry. I asked Yang Ling if her brother had said anything else. Uncle Ling is truly furious this time, even resorting to family discipline. Unpredictable as life is, the elders from both families, who were on good terms not long ago, have now turned around and disapprove of this marriage, and indeed, we did go too far. If I could start over, I would still hire at a high price. Since the Ling family won't release her, I'll go visit my future parents-in-law, younger brother, and sister at the Ling residence. The Ling family left me waiting at the door for 2 hours, and even the gatekeeper explicitly said they wouldn't help me get inside, so I decided to go all the way and just collapsed right in front of the Ling residence. The next second, I was carried inside, the first time entering the door. I had to be carried. Once inside, it wasn't appropriate to place me just anywhere, so Lady Ling simply nodded and had them carry me directly to the west wing of Ling Q's courtyard. This had been prepared for me long in advance. After lying down for a while, someone rushed in and held my hands tightly. I moved my index finger, tracing it in his palm. Ling Q lowered his head and kissed my finger, then leaned close to my ear and whispered, "You scared me to death." As soon as my father heard that I had fainted at the entrance of the Ling residence, he rushed over without a moment's delay. After Ling Q assured him that I was fine, my father turned to find Mr. Ling to question him. Mr. Ling, knowing he was in the wrong, had no choice but to relent and no longer restrict Ling Q. As for the matter of our marriage, what kind of marriage is this? If my daughter were to marry into your family, wouldn't she be bullied like this every single day? Of course not. What do you mean not? Isn't my daughter lying in bed right now, her life hanging by a thread? Father, you're exaggerating. Actually, I'm doing quite well. The Ling family expressed that they would follow the Shun family's lead in everything, and once Master Shun's anger subsides, the two families would sit down again to discuss the wedding date. After saying this, he invited my father to the front courtyard for tea, saying that they should not disturb my rest. As soon as Master Ling and my father left, Ling Q immediately ran to the bedside to wake me up. "Shun Yuehuai, if your father never relents, then I will never marry either," Ling Q said earnestly, holding my hand. "Then you must come to the Shun residence often and make your presence known in front of him." I said, "Yes, Madam treats me so well." Ling Q leaned in and affectionately rubbed his face against mine. There's no need to change the form of address in advance. It was the first time I heard him call me that, and I blushed all the way to the tips of my ears. "You brat, get off her right now." My father had just finished drinking tea in the front yard and came to take me home. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Ling Q and me in such a state. His anger, which had just subsided, flared up again. I, who had just regained consciousness after fainting, immediately sat up, quickly put on my shoes, and stepped between the two of them. "Father, let's go back first." My father glared at Ling Q, but Ling Q's gaze remained fixed on me. "Take care, madam," Ling Q said with reluctance, his eyes filled with deep affection. "What are you shouting about?" Old Master Shun fumed, his beard bristling with anger. Old Master Shun caused a scene at the Ling residence in Linen with his beloved daughter. Upon hearing that Ling Q had once again angered Old Master Shun, the entire Ling family rushed over. Putting on a humble demeanor and using every possible means to barely suppress half of my father's rage, Ling Q gave a slight bow and escorted me and my father to the entrance of the estate. Adhering to the principle of not entering the Shun estate without permission, Ling Q waited for me only at the main gate. My father scolded me, saying that a young lady should not always be wandering around the city. Ling Q and I then took a carriage outside the city to enjoy some intimate time together. My father couldn't stand it any longer and summoned Ling Q to the mansion to see me, forbidding him from going out and attracting attention before the wedding. With that, my father had relented. Once my father gave his approval, Ling Qiu smiled and promised me that I only needed to wait for him to come and marry me. The very next day, news came that the eldest young master Ling had a relapse of his old illness and was bedridden. My frail fiancé, oh, this time he recovered in just 2 days. Madame Ling said that if he didn't get better, she wouldn't let him see me, lest it affect my health as well. Ling Qiu has always been like this, and I suddenly realized a serious problem. What will happen on our wedding night? This is not me being overly anxious, but rather, it concerns the next several decades. I asked my father if I could give it a try first. My father flew into a rage and sent Ling Qiu, who had just recovered from a serious illness and came to visit, away. Indeed, no father in the world would want his daughter to marry a sickly man. Ling Qiu sent a letter the next day, asking if something had happened again. I wrote back to reassure him not to worry, as I would handle it myself. In the early summer of the following year, the wedding was ultimately held. As for being frail and sickly, Ling Qiu personally proved to me that my earlier concerns were unnecessary. I really regret it. Ling Qiu gently nuzzled his face against mine. That day. I should have just captured you and brought you back for the wedding ceremony. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.